Hi, and welcome back to our show, Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. Our first guest today is Helen Mack, and this is part of the series Optimising Outcomes, and today she's talking about taking action. So welcome, Helen.
Thanks, Linda.
Can you just start us off by how people would start taking action?
Sure. So we've talked about creating clarity, we've talked about maximising momentum, and we've talked about maintaining mindset. And all of that is fantastic, but if you're only thinking about it, then nothing's going to change. So without action, all we have is contemplation. And thinking never made anything occur. I think some people get into what I call analysis paralysis. They spend so much time thinking about which should I do and what's the best thing to do, that they don't realise that by simply choosing to act, they bring in some power from the universe that somehow supports and helps you then take the next step.
So important, isn't it, for us to think about that overthinking takes over so easily in life.
And it's exhausting because you spend your whole time trying to sort out the priorities and which is the best thing and can I and just asking all these questions that end up with you going into a spiral and nothing happens. And then you start beating yourself up about all the things you should do. I call it shoulding all over yourself. You know, I should do this and I should do that. None of that matters. All you need to do is just take a small positive step forward. And the wonderful thing that happens then is that you get feedback. So you take a tiny step and the universe gives you feedback. That was a great decision, Helen, keep going. Or, oh, I don't think so. And you'll get obstacles and things that make it really, really difficult. And the key piece is to watch for those, to notice those messages and go, this is seeming like it's really, really hard. Maybe I should just pause and take a slightly different direction. So I like to use, this is going to give away my age, but I like to use the example of push starting a car. Now, there are going to be some of our viewers who go, what are you talking about? Because you can't push start automatics. But in the days of manual cars, you had to get the car into momentum before you could change direction. You had to take action. You had to put some input in to get an outcome. And it's the same with whatever goals you're at. Your viewers may have noticed, if they've been watching, that I'm a bit of a fan of orange. And the other analogy that I love to use is that you can't get orange juice from an orange by looking at it. You actually have to do something. You have to squeeze. And I think life's a bit like that. You don't get the juice out of life if you don't give it a good squeeze.
On that path where people can get caught up in this positive thinking thing, you were talking about that earlier. What's your take on affirmations and that sort of perspective?
I think that one of the challenges that I have with affirmations is that when a lot of people teach affirmations, they teach you to talk in the current tense about things that are going to happen in the future tense. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that because my brain goes, no, I'm not. You know, I say, I'm tall and fit and healthy, and my little voice says, no, I'm not. So I like if I'm going to make statements about my future, I use action words, verbs, like I'm working towards, or I'm taking steps towards, or I'm becoming, rather than I am. Because my brain fights with me. If I say I am something that I'm working towards, I literally have the little voice going, no, you're not. And so I think that's a problem. Now, I'm an optimist by personality and by trade. That's what I teach the world, is how to be more optimistic. The problem with it, thinking doesn't make anything happen. So, bad news for all of us. We cannot sit on the couch and think positively about the red Ferrari coming down the driveway. It's not going to happen. The piece that's missing is what I call the action imperative. The only way to get that red Ferrari, if that's what you want, is to go out and do something to make that happen. And that's why I love optimism as an approach, because optimism has a built-in action imperative. The word itself, optimism, comes from optimus, which is Latin, the search for the good, the search for the best possible. And again, your viewers may remember that from our first episode. So the search for the best possible outcome is built into optimism. It doesn't mean that we are always sweetness and light and balloons and streamers. It means that we take a realistic look at what's going on. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? What's the best possible route for me to get there? And then what's the action I can take to move me towards that goal?
I love that becoming. Because that's totally relevant for me in my journey. I could always have those arguments with myself, and then the overthinking's more compounded, isn't it?
Correct.
You're not feeling like that. So
No.
how can I be that if I'm not feeling?
Yeah,
like
I can't say I am when I'm not yet.
Mm.
So I'm becoming is a very powerful change of verb.
So in regard to bigger things and with that possibility thinking, what sort of action can we take towards that to get the best possible scenario?
So I'm going to start with one that your viewers have probably heard before, because I think a lot of people have heard, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Now, I quite like that analogy, except that I also like elephants. So I don't like the idea of eating elephants. I think the key is to take the tiniest possible step to activate what we talked about a couple of sessions ago around maximising momentum. Once we get into action, once we get into movement, like pushing that stalled car, once we get it moving, then we've got the chance to change direction. It's very hard to change direction from being stopped, from being stationary. In any big project, the key is just to take that first tiny step. Once you get that tiny step, you'll get feedback, you'll have a chance to take more steps and more steps. One of my favourite sayings in this area was delivered to me by a very good friend, Max Dixon, and he said, just choose a single, simple, doable thing. Then you know you've done it, and then you can choose another one. Baby steps will still get you there.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much, Helen, for joining us in this series. For more information on Helen and optimising outcome and today's taking actions on that, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And now we'll go to break and be back with another beautiful guest. Welcome back, and we have George Gentilis, our somatic psychotherapist, and today he's talking about healing trauma. What is trauma, George?
Yeah, big topic. Trauma is basically an event that happens in your life where you felt like you, even for a second, perceived, even if it wasn't real, that you could have died. If there's one split second, you think, I could die here, that's the shock. That's the trauma. It's just entered your body. Well, your body, your whole nervous system, your whole physical body, organs, everything, you felt like you could actually die for 1 second. And that could happen with a physical trauma. Car accidents are a typical one. You see the car coming at you, you brace. For 1 split second, your brain thinks, I could die here. And the car hits, you don't die. And then you're left with this shock in the body that sometimes comes out naturally, sometimes doesn't. And if it doesn't, if it stays in your body, it leads to what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where months later you're still rehashing the event. It's like it happened yesterday, and your body can't release it. You can't relax, or you feel heavy, or you start to feel anxious or depressed for no reason, and that's a trauma. That's a physical trauma, so we get a high impact in the body. Then you've got developmental trauma, which is normally the childhood stuff, where you got neglected or abandoned as a child, or abused physically. Sexual abuse is a big one, sadly. But we've got great methods now for healing a lot of that, that's the exciting part, rather than just taking a pill, like I mentioned last time. And sometimes trauma can be something gradual that happens in childhood, where a certain parent puts you down constantly, and it doesn't look like anything much, but 20 years later you're like, weighed down by all this negative thinking, and it's an emotional trauma. That's a developmental emotional abuse, basically, especially if that parent was alcoholic or they had a mental illness, and you had to even support them. A lot of times as a child you have to grow up real quick to support them because they can't even look after you. That's very traumatic, and that can lead to a lot of issues. But it gets stored in your body, and that's the fantastic thing that we've discovered in the last 15, 20 years. It's not just a thinking thing. You can go and talk to someone, talk to a counsellor. That's the best thing to do after a particular event. If something has just happened to you, say a car accident, and you're shaken up by it, or you've had an operation that's shook you up, or because surgery is cutting the person's open, when you're getting cut open, the body thinks it's going to die, because there's a knife coming at it. So that's normal trauma. But if months go by and you're still weighed down by it, and you've all of a sudden all these different things start to happen in your life, reactions, you start getting sick easier, you're not sleeping properly. Normally, we can trace that back to a particular event, and you go back to when you didn't have those issues. Normally, almost always, there'll be some major event that happened at that time. Could be a major divorce, a major breakup. That can be traumatic. When your partner you've loved all of a sudden turns on you, very traumatic.
Would an example be like somebody has something physical, actual feeling, or a body motion, or a leg having problems? Would that be signs of?
Yes.
Would that be part?
Yes, definitely.
Trauma?
Yeah. Especially if you start getting muscle tensions. Neck is a common one. Legs, psoas muscle, that fight-flight response that we talk about, that lower brain in your body, the sensory-motor brain, that needs to release that fight-flight response. So if you think you're in danger, even just for a split second, and you perceive, I might die here, your body wants to save itself. And how do you save yourself? You either run from the event or you fight. And your body's going to want to do one or two of those, or both. If you don't let it happen at the time, because we've got a great intellect, we can block it off. When people feel a trauma, they'll hold their breath, tense up their muscles, and that keeps it in. If you watch an animal in the wild, they won't keep it in. They'll go away and tremble and shake, and it'll come out. But we don't do that. As human beings, we're civilized, and it's great that we've got this intellect, which the animal kingdom doesn't have. But the negative side of that intellect is that we can lock down this fight-flight response. So really what you want to do is allow your body to move and let out that fight-flight response. And it comes out as trembling, shaking, twitches, jolts, which is why it's very important to go to the gym. You've got to go. That's the fight response when you do resistance training or boxing or lifting dumbbells. You need that exercise where your body can feel like it's pushing, and then your nervous system feels like, now I'm safe. I can push away, and your body gets a chance to save itself, basically. Your body hasn't saved itself. You may have intellectually, you may have rationalised, the event happened in the past, and you'll have friends around you telling you get over it, and you think, I can't get, I'm trying to get over it, but you've got all this weight in your body, and what it is uncompleted fight-flight response. So going to the gym is critical. Everyone should be going to the gym and doing something physical. Walking helps, little short bursts of runs. Interval training is great. Even for 30 seconds on a stationary bike, go flat out, and your nervous system can release that flight response, and then it relaxes, and then you sleep like a baby, sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, very important.
Right.
Very important.
And what would it be a bit of advice for our viewers about if they did observe trauma or feel it for themselves?
Yes, if you've had a trauma, or even watching a movie on TV, a horror movie, and it traumatised you, you've got to come back to your body, because not only is that fight-flight response blocked off, but people dissociate. So people leave their body and they feel like they're living up here, or living to the side of the body if it's a real high-impact problem, high-impact accident, or if you had a lot of bullying at school. You really want to start to come back into your body again. And a good way of that is just to pat your body, to feel it, breathe under your hand, and go out around your whole body, and just start to get a sense of, I'm back in my body again. And as you come back into it, you'll get little jolts, little twitches, little shakes. That's good. Right? That's not bad. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That's really good, because your nervous system's finally, that lower brain, is finally getting to, finally relax, shake, 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 relax, shake, 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 relax, and just recover. You get peace of mind comes back, and the weight lifts, because your nervous system isn't trying to run or fight. Very important.
Oh, well, that's wonderful, George. Thank you for sharing, and you'll be back with us another time, next time, I believe, and you'll be talking about how trauma shows up as anxiety.
How anxiety shows up, yeah, that dreaded stress in our lives, yeah. Yep.
And if you'd like to know more about George and healing trauma, then please go to our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Welcome back, and next we have Con Nichols, who's a property advisor and wellbeing advocate. And today Con's here with the first in a series about improving your environment to meet your lifestyle. And Con's here today to talk to us about utilities and insurance. So welcome, Con.
Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the show.
What sort of grouping actually are you referring to?
Look, like we all said before, like, your mum and dad, they've got the kids moved out, the parents moved on. So now they got a massive property down there that literally they hardly use most of it. So, and of course, it brings up a new can of worms with a lot of things that actually will affect their lifestyle as well. And the biggest thing, obviously, we can think of, obviously, your energy. Remember something, the bigger the property you have, the more it's going to cost you to warm it up or to cool it down. And the bigger the property is, the more insurance you're going to pay, and the more outgoings in the sense that you got to maintain the cost. Example is, if you move down to a smaller property and you got a 40 square home and you move into a 20 square home, literally half the size, your energy will be less, your gas will be less. Definitely your insurance will be less because you won't be insuring your property in a bigger amount because it'll be smaller. And as we all know that insurance work on reconstruction value of what you're going to insure it for and so on. So all these little things that add up to a bigger pot for you for later on the years. It will be more economically benefit for you later on. And in addition to that as well, having a bigger house, you're going to actually find more appliances, and you're going to find more furnitures, and you're going to find more things that actually you got to buy things that you don't need anymore. So in this case here, smaller is better. Also linked as well is that, for example, you got a bigger house, which has a bigger yard. Technically, you got to maintain your garden, right? So that means you waste more water. And having all these water restrictions lately, obviously, it's going to be a bigger cost to you as well. And so you're saving on the water, you're saving on the gas, you're saving on the energy, you're saving on things that actually on insurances, on your policies, on the contents. Because a smaller property, you're going to insure less amount of contents than a bigger house. So if you look at the money you're saving, when it comes down to your freedom to utilize your nest, as we say, in a bigger way, you've got better funds, you've got more funds to use. And we all know these days here, every little dollar counts.
So then with the energy, would that include things like, I suppose it includes loads of things, like even if you've got air conditioning or heating or all of those things?
Definitely. I mean, can you imagine now, let's say in this case here, we've got a mum and dad moved into a 2-bedroom unit or a townhouse, and your living area, it's more restricted, more smaller, but more comfortable. So that area of space, it takes a lot more less to cool down than your big rumpus room and your family room and so on. So technically, you're saving money. And yes, it might be smaller, but it's more comfortable as well. You don't have to use your energy as often. And there are all these little things that a lot of people are getting the benefit of, you can utilize for later on in your life.
And Con, I know for our viewers it might be very helpful to have a bit of advice about contents insurance.
Oh look, I mean, a lot of people get mixed up about, look, we've got building insurance, now we need content insurance. What is a content insurance? Now, when you've got a property, for example, and the floor coverings, it's not a building insurance, it's a content insurance. And a lot of people get mixed up. Well, hold on, but is that part of the building? Well, no. And you've got to be very, very careful, viewers, that when you speak to your advisor, professional advisor, when it comes to insurance, you gotta brief him in what you cover and not covered. Another topic I want to discuss when it comes to downsizing with insurance there is, for example, if you live in a building block and you downsize into a smaller property, you still get the benefits of having a beautiful and warm place and so on. However, you don't pay the excess of the vulnerability, you don't pay the excess of the surrounds, insurance, the minus, because they work on sizing. So the bigger your apartment is or your space, you pay more. The smaller it is, you pay less, of course. And at the end of the day, it's better for you guys. The more you're saving, it goes towards your lifestyle later on. And at the end of the day, it's all about living healthy and living happy.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll say bye-bye to Con till next time for now. And for more about Con Nichols and improving your environment to meet your lifestyle, then please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we'll say bye-bye for now, and we'll see you next week, back with more amazing interviews with people in health, wellbeing and lifestyle.